So hello, welcome back to a short video where I want to talk why I am skipping the A7R4. I own the A7R3. It's the camera that I use most of the time, and I love in many ways. It's not that I dislike the A7R4. I think it's a really nice camera, but there was one thing that was bothering me, and with the release of the RX100VII, all these numbers, the 1-inch small sort of camera, I kind of made up my mind about skipping the A7R4 and hoping for a better A9. Yeah, please subscribe and give it a like, because one of the things that I also do with this video is post it on my Facebook, our Facebook group called A7R4 setup tips, and asking people to basically watch the video and reply, because I'm really wondering how many people are going from Facebook to YouTube. These algorithms are really funky, and I want to sort of also use this a little bit as a test case. So getting back to the issue. So why do I decided to skip the A7R4? At least that's my current feeling. The thing that bothers me is basically that it doesn't have a stack sensor. And I know this may sound silly, but in my mind, the A9 Mark I, so the old one, showed the way that we don't want to have the normal shutter anymore, but that we are going to a world where basically the sensor is always sort of watching the picture coming in, gathering data in any way it sees fits. If it's 61 megapixels or 100 megapixels, I don't care. If it does it in one time slot or many time slots, I don't care. I think Sony has a lot of interesting tricks up their sleeve. But in the end, I feel that the stack sensor design for me is the major step forward. And I just feels funny, wrong is maybe the best way to say it, to go to the A7R4 without knowing what the A9 Mark II will be doing. So, because it just sort of feels wrong. I'm not sure if I'm the only one, but I think the stack sensor is the whole paradigm shift that is about to hit the other brands really hard from Sony. And my guess is that the A9 Mark II, which will probably be a little bit more expensive, but kind of in the same ballpark for us in Europe, because remember the A7R4 is 4,000 euros in the Netherlands, and I normally also add insurance, so that's another, let's say, 400 euros for the first 3 years. So that's quite a lot of money for a body. I love the changes. I love there's about 50 different changes to the A7R4. I think they are fine, but for me, the extra megapixels doesn't weigh up to the paradigm shift that the A9 is doing. And we're already hearing people who are reviewing it that although on all these cameras they are saying, well, it has the focusing system of the A9. Remember Mark I, it clearly doesn't, right? And I think it has partly to do with the stack sensor, and it's partly to do with the sort of the just being the top of the line of the camera. So I have great expectations of the A9 Mark II, and I really hope, because one thing I love about this camera is the 42 megapixels, or basically the fact that there is a hidden APS-C camera inside this body, right? So that's kind of what makes me wonder. If Sony releases an A9 Mark II with a 36 megapixel or 42 megapixel sensor, which doesn't sound too weird to me, then I will definitely move to the A9 line, simply because of the paradigm shift, which I think we are seeing in some of the cameras of Sony, but not all of the cameras. And so next to all the body changes that they have made to the R4, which I think are nice, I think some of the software updates are very nice. I think it's a very solid camera, but for me it just feels a bit going backwards, especially now that they have released, let's say, their cheap 1-inch camera, which is still 11 or 1200 euros, and I see how the focusing works there, and how the total no blackout is working there with the stack technology, I just can't see myself spending, let's say, 4,500 to 5,000 euros, because that's the price that we are going to pay in Europe, for something that basically feels like an old generation product in the sensor area. That doesn't tell you much about the sensor itself, because I think that's probably a very good sensor. I just think that Sony didn't open up all the tricks that they could have in this camera, and for me that means that I'm now really looking forward to the new A9 Mark II, and hoping that that will be at least be a 36 megapixel sensor, because then in crop mode it will still be a very solid 15-16 megapixels. If they make it a 42 megapixel sensor, then it will be about 18 megapixels. I'm assuming that some of the downsides of the A9, which had to do with the dynamic range, will be better because they also improved the sensor. So I think that for me that becomes much more of a complete camera, although of course it will not be cheap. Yeah, tell me what you think in the comments. Are you also bothered a little bit about the fact, and I know this is a nerdy thing, let me be upfront about this. I know that this is probably more in my head in a way, and but I feel that it sort of feels that the road ahead is clear, but they decided for the A7R4 not to open that road. Could they have done it? Maybe. Maybe the amount of megapixels is just too much. But maybe they should also go for 42 megapixels, stayed at the 42 megapixels and added the stack design. But then you get into the A9 territory. So I can see their logic in it, and I'm not disagreeing with it. I think it will be a wonderful camera, and maybe I will change my mind if the A9 takes too long. But for now, I'm really hoping that Sony's next big step will be the A9 Mark II, and where all these features come together, and we are making this paradigm shift to the stack sensor design with all the advantages. And the major advantage, of course, is that you default in these cameras, so the A7 series so far, you normally would shoot with a shutter and only go to the silent shooting, so shutterless, if it's possible, so let's say 5% of the cases. And in the A9 is the other way around, it's 95% that you shoot in silent mode, with all the advantages that it has, and I won't get into that, but all the advantages that it has, from almost no shutter lag, almost no rolling shutter in video, and things like that. And of course the sensor is able to watch all the incoming data all the time, because there's not like this shutter thingy going up and down every time. I think that's the future, and yeah, like I said, I'm repeating myself, but I'm wondering what other people think about this, about knowing what is coming and knowing what is the way forward, but still picking quite an expensive camera for 2 or 3 years that doesn't go in that direction, and we'll have to wait for another generation. So tell me what you think about that, and yeah, see you in the next one. Just a heads up, in the next videos I will get back to a little bit more explanation about the different features, and I've also ordered quite a few small hardware new boxes which we'll be playing around with. There's not much in the camera area at the moment on the A7 or the A7R3 that we can explain or we can make more videos about. If you still have questions and you want me to explain more stuff that's already not been covered with one of my videos so far, yeah, please tell me, and I will make one and put it in the A7 III, A7R3 setup tips files area. So thank you for watching, and see you in the next one. Bye bye.